You think Vince McMahon's going to do jail time?
I'm fascinated with this. I'm fascinated with this story.
Because we hear this a lot with people in power, like Vince McMahon, Harvey Weinstein.
So, okay, for the listeners, this probably already came out, but maybe you haven't listened to what is going on. I grew up with WWF, WWE, and Vince McMahon was like one of the coolest bad guys in history of.
So let me say this. When these accusations came out, and this isn't the first time, we've had these before. Every time these accusations come out, anyone who has ever watched WWE programming is like, I believe it. Because this is the same guy who booked a storyline where he put his wife in a medically induced coma and then would make out with Trish Stratus in front of her and then make Trish Stratus strip down to her bra and panties and bark like a dog in the middle of the ring. This is the same guy who booked himself to make out with every hot chick on the roster, whether it was Tori Wilson or Stacy Keibler or Sable. Like, this man gave zero fucks his entire career.
He said the N-word back in, like, what was it, 2009, 12?
I think it was like 7.
Yeah.
But
he wore a do-rag. He was wild. And he just had a accusation for, what was it? Paying for sex.
So a couple of years ago, he got accused of sexual assault and paying women hush money. And that's when he stepped down from the WWE and then came back after the TKO merger. And now more accusations have come out. And it's like a 64-page document.
When I hear this stuff, like, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah. Now
he shat on her head. He shat on her head.
He did, and he basically, like,
she was forced to do it.
She was forced, and they threatened, like, her job. Like,
she worked for WWE,
and she said there was multiple people who were forced into doing this, and then people who tried to, like, stand up or fight back or say, no, I'm not doing that, all of a sudden got demoted or all of a sudden got fired. Yeah. So you're being threatened with your job security. She was allegedly coerced into doing threesomes, and not even the fun kind where it's 2 chicks, but the bad kind where it's 2 dudes. We call that the devil's threesome.
John Laurinaitis.
Yeah. And he would show nude photos of her to other people.
A lot of those people were probably... The thing about it is, I'm sure that a lot of the people that are accusing him are also guilty of some shit. Maybe not just with that victim, there's others, you know? And I'm sure this is just a way to, like... He's got too much pull here. I need to get some of this power back myself. How do I get rid of him? And that's
so I'll say this: like, he had her sign an NDA,
which is crazy.
Which is crazy. Supposedly he was supposed to pay her $3 million in hush money. He only paid her $1 million, and so that can be considered a breach of contract. So that way the NDA is no longer enforceable. Also, if these accusations are true, an NDA doesn't protect you from illegal acts. So if any of this stuff turns out to be grounds, that can also be grounds for the NDA to be terminated. But it looks like they were like, hey, this is our opening because he's powerful. He's got all these lawyers. But by breaking the NDA, by not paying you the full settlement amount, that can be grounds for us to finally go public with this and get him on this loophole, get him on this technicality. And then hopefully, with all this stuff public, other people might come forward too. And we can nail this son of a bitch to the wall.
Which this is the second step, though, right? They got him earlier because of
and he's being investigated by the FBI right now for not just this, but other accusations as well.
Like what?
Well, he's been accused multiple times in the past, and it always just disappears. They always just settle out of court. Yeah. And so I was reading that the FBI raided his house, and he's being investigated by the FBI over these charges and previous charges.
For what was he in the past?
Same kind of thing: sexual assault, trafficking, all these.
And trafficking.
Well, it's trafficking because WWE moves from state to state all across the country.
And these people, this woman in particular, like, she was forced to move from place to place.
Yeah, exactly. Cross state lines and being coerced into these sexual acts, and so that's where a lot of it comes from as well.
Did you see any of the text messages?
I did. They're very graphic, really? And they
sound like it's coming from a fucking horny teenager. It doesn't sound like a 58-year-old man or whatever age he was. It's crazy.
What's crazy is apparently
how sick he was.
He had sex toys that were named after wrestlers. So can you just imagine in his office, and he's
he really love those wrestlers.
Can you imagine like being in the office and he's just like, John, hand me the Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that's sick, man. It seems like, but that's just a rich guy thing. Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
So here's another thing.
It makes sense that he's into all this shit, though.
Well,
you know?
here's another thing though. Like years ago, Shane McMahon kind of like cut ties with WWE and went off and did his own thing, and we never really got a reason why, other than Vince saying, "Oh, Shane wants to find his own path and forge his own destiny," right? Just vague stuff like that. And one of the rumors I'm hearing now is that Shane might have known about all this going on and was just like, I don't want to end up like you. I don't want to be connected to this. I'm going to leave.
Wow. Really?
That's allegedly. Allegedly. None of us were there, so we don't know. It's all
Because
hearsay.
he did leave for a while. Like, he went to China or something.
Yeah, he did his own media company. He was gone for like 10 years, and then he came back, I think, in like 2015, 2016, and I think he's gone again now.
I don't hear about wrestling stuff. I don't really care about the storyline. I hear about the scandals, and that's more interesting than the fucking wrestling. Like, the storylines. Like, the whole Vince McMahon shit is probably bringing way more eyes right now than Cody's whatever.
I can't wait for the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Vince McMahon, because you know we're going to get one at some point.
Right, and that kind of stuff is way more interesting than the fucking show.
So
for me.
So let me tell you this. Years ago, WWE does those documentaries on all their wrestlers, right? They did one on.
It's like a 30 for 30, but for
Kind of. But they did one for Vince McMahon years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And in the documentary, or it might have been on the special features on the DVD, I don't remember. But Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, was telling this story about how when she got pregnant with her first kid,
oh, that was sick.
Vince McMahon pitched the idea of, we should do a storyline where I'm the father. And she was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then Vince came back, okay, what if it was Shane? And she was like, no. And then you also hear like back in the 90s, like
Donald Trump shit right there.
Well, back in the 90s, Ken Shamrock, they introduced his sister, Ryan Shamrock, which was really just his real life girlfriend, but they decided to make her a TV character, and they made her his kayfabe sister. And then Vince McMahon wanted to do like a romance angle with them. Like, 'cause for some reason, this guy's into fucking incest, because he keeps pitching all these incest angles.
It's weird, man. Like, I remember hearing comedian Patrice O'Neal, where when he worked for WWE, he was like, man, I remember some interview, he said Vince is cold, like he's cold hearted, like he'll have a guy in there who's Middle Eastern. It's like, do an accent like based on like, make the character do an accent, like write it, like I don't give a fuck, like write some racist ass shit. It's like he didn't care, like you don't want to do it, then you're fucking out of here. Like, he was hella cutthroat as a businessman.
Yeah.
And apparently that's people are used to that. That's been
Well, he's been a cutthroat businessman his whole life. Like back in the day, the NWA's biggest pay-per-view of the year was Starrcade.
Yeah.
And it used to happen, in November. It used to happen on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
And so you'd have Thanksgiving dinner, and then you watch Starrcade.
Yeah.
Right? Vince McMahon.
that was WW.
That was NWA.
NWA.
And so Vince McMahon, to compete with the NWA and one-up them, he created the Survivor Series, which was also on Thanksgiving Day. And so it was the same day. And he even told pay-per-view providers, if you carry Starrcade, I'm not going to give you WrestleMania. So I think, I don't remember if it was Starrcade 86 or 87 or 80. I forget which Starrcade it was, but it only got picked up by like a handful of pay-per-view carriers, and it was like this huge, devastating blow to the NWA.
But they're still around, no? They're just not nowhere near.
Nowhere near what they were,
It's
and now
small little areas.
And now they're owned by Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. But that's the kind of businessman Vince McMahon was.
Yeah. And I think like with the whole Vince thing, everybody knows there's a lot of wrestlers have came out and spoken out about how fucked up he is.
See, here's what's weird, because we also hear about how compassionate Vince McMahon can be at times. Like
With Undertaker.
Well, like when Bret Hart was in WCW and he had his stroke and he was in the hospital, Bret told the story. He got a call from Vince McMahon. He hadn't spoken to Vince McMahon in 3 years since the Survivor Series screw job. And Vince called him to check up on him and see how he was doing. And he gave him a fucking pep talk. He was like, Bret, you're a fighter. You're going to get through this. Like, and then you hear, like, Maven talked about, like, when his mom died, Vince McMahon personally called him and offered his condolences and told him, take all the time off you need. If you need anything from us, we're here from you. So
people can,
it's weird because, like,
people can be compassionate and still be fucking monsters.
yeah, like, nobody's one thing or another. Like, there's multiple sides to people. So
even those serial killers, bro, who killed many people, were nice to their family and friends.
I actually have a story to tell you.
All right.
But just to put a cap on the Vince McMahon thing, like, nobody's one thing or another. Is he probably this sex-crazed, power-hungry maniac? Yes. Does that mean he's heartless? Not necessarily.
I don't think anyone is one thing or the other, but sometimes people have more of the one thing that, like, shows eventually at the end it's gonna collapse on you and you can't carry that fucking burden, or if someone, it spills in with somebody else. With him, it's all these years of we know what the fuck, just what from we know is pretty terrible, but now all that other, like, probably did more bad than good in his life, even though he did a lot of good and did a lot of good for others. But you know, he still, they pulled all this shit out and fucking it's out there now. Right, recently they were like showing videos of him being like a nice little old grandpa dad, and like he's looking old, like, oh, look at him when he was in Saudi Arabia or whatever with Undertaker, and he looked like an old shriveled old man. It's like, oh, he looks so cute. Like everyone was like, wow, he's really old now. Like he's aging gracefully or whatever. Like he's gonna die a sweet old man. But sometimes that shit comes back to bite you in the ass.
So
apparently.
I'll say this. I don't know if he's going to do jail time because he's got the best lawyers money can buy. Yeah. But I don't know if his reputation recovers from this.
I doubt it.
I mean, Harvey Weinstein ain't going to be working in the industry anymore.
No.
So who knows? Who knows?
Did you know that the Voice Party has merch? T-shirts, hoodies, wall clocks, bath mats, even mini skirts. We will throw our logo on absolutely anything. Click the link in the description below and pick up some Voice Party merch today.